So first of all, a big concept. Let's embrace the free market. And you may think, well, of course, we already do that. No, actually, we haven't embraced the free market for about 50 years in this country. Since about the 50s or 60s, thanks to the Chicago School of Economics and subsequent laws and other things that evolved, we've embraced a form of corporate capitalism that has nothing to do with what Adam Smith originally described as the free market. Something that recognized the importance of land and labor and capital as three equally important constituent elements, not just capital alone. In other words, I think I question frequently, why on earth are we letting Wall Street rule our country? People, planet, and prosperity. And you'll notice that's not profit, it's prosperity. It's the idea that all of us can be prosperous together. This is something we're working on very deeply at USDA with community economic development as a new framework for how we are trying to interact with the community and deliver our programs. And we're not alone. This triple bottom line type of thinking is something that you're seeing a lot of partners now collaborating on. In fact, thanks to work from folks like Steve Frisch and the Sierra Business Council and others, it is one of the key guiding lights of the California State Economic Summit for the last 3 years. You're wanting to be innovators, and many of you already are. Innovators, one of the key things is to clear away those organizational roadblocks that constrain creativity. And it unleashes so much energy and passion when you do that. One of the things we've been working on, and by we I do mean quite a few in the audience as well, is getting working landscapes recognized as a key piece of the California economy. A major roadblock that's been driving me crazy for the last 3 or 4 years when I'm dealing with the financial sector, with our state legislators, with our urban folks, and frankly, with way too many of our economic development professionals, they don't see rural. They don't see it. Everybody wants to be Silicon Valley. How many Silicon Valleys can we have around this state, let alone other states? This is, I think, 2013 numbers. Yeah, 2013. 1.2 million jobs in California are directly tied to working landscapes. And actually that number and that direct sales is probably low because in this report they didn't give near the credit to recreation and tourism that's happening out here in our rural landscapes as I think they should have, by quite a bit, frankly. One of the things we're doing is we're looking at opportunities for ecosystem services. You've heard that mentioned several times. We all know that if the watersheds up here in the Sierras and the Cascades were healthy, if those forests were functioning the way they were meant to be, the way Mother Nature would actually have them function, they could be producing 10 to 20% more water. And these mountains, these upper forest watersheds, produce 2/3 of the water for the state of California, as well as a humongous percentage for Nevada. I hadn't worked on that number before, but glad to know it. But just for California, 2/3 of the water. Can you imagine this year if we had 10 to 20% more water? So how are we going to get that, though? Part of it is making that understanding of the linkage. That's why that number we had up there earlier, these numbers here, that's why they're so important, because they capture the attention and the imagination of folks sitting over in the financial district in San Francisco and in Sacramento in the state capital. That we've got to get them to understand these. Then I want to go on to communication. Communicate far and wide and smart. Because the reality is, knowledge is power. We all know that. And if people start sharing that knowledge and that power, they're collaborating. And once they start collaborating, your advocacy efforts are far more effective, as well as your planning efforts, bringing all the, like you were talking in Lake Tahoe, bringing all those groups together. And once you got all that pulled together, guess what? Then implementation can happen. And there's support for it. There's even support to fund the implementation if you've done all of this. Part of that, too, is making the case for the financing. It is way too easy for the financial world to just ignore rural. They're convinced that it's It's not a good investment. I love this study because these folks went out and really looked at 18,000 investments, a lot of investments. They looked at every single way you measure return on investment, and they found that equity capital in rural areas is just as successful as equity capital in tech-oriented metro regions. Now, how many of you would have believed that? This is going to happen because folks like you, good people like you, step up to the plate, talk to each other, collaborate, help out, research, go stick your neck out and be an entrepreneur, whatever. If you're doing this, you are the intangible capital, and you've got a lot of intangible capital sitting in this room. I know it. I know the networks and the knowledge and the skills and everything that's sitting in this room right now. You've got everything you need to completely turn this region around. And you're already well on your way, thanks to Sierra Business Council and other partners up here. Great stuff happening this last few years. And now I guess I'm just proposing, let's start kicking it into an even higher gear. Let's go from second gear to third, you know?